People often assume I moved to Indonesia because it was the cheapest option. They couldn't be more wrong. If money had been my only concern, I probably would have stayed where I was, at 68 years old, packing one suitcase and flying alone to a country where I didn't speak the language. Sounded completely irrational. My own children tried to change my mind. Friends told me I was making the biggest mistake of my life. Some even asked if I was having a late life crisis. Maybe they had a point, because just a few months earlier, I had been comparing retirement in Malaysia and the Philippines almost every single night. Both looked promising. Both seemed more affordable than my life back home. And for a while, I genuinely believed one of them would become my new home. But after months of planning, I walked away from both. Today, sitting on the shaded terrace of my small rented home in Indonesia, listening to scooters pass by while my neighbor calls out my name with a smile, I finally understand why. I wasn't searching for the cheapest country. I was searching for somewhere my life could begin again. Retirement wasn't supposed to feel this lonely. When I stopped working, everyone congratulated me. You've earned this. Now you can finally relax. But nobody talks about what happens when the routine disappears, when the phone stops ringing, when birthdays become quieter every year. My husband had been gone for 6 years. The house we'd spent decades building together suddenly felt far too large for one person. Every room held memories. Every evening ended in silence. Financially, things weren't much better. Inflation slowly chipped away at my retirement income. Healthcare costs kept climbing. Even grocery shopping became something I planned with a calculator. I wasn't living badly, but I was constantly worried. So I started researching retirement overseas. I joined Facebook groups, watched YouTube videos, read blogs written by retirees. Again and again, 2 countries kept appearing: Malaysia, the Philippines. For months, I convinced myself the answer had to be one of them. Malaysia impressed me immediately. Modern cities, excellent hospitals, comfortable apartments. Everything felt familiar, almost too familiar. When I added everything together, rent, healthcare, visas, groceries, transportation, I realized my monthly budget wasn't going to stretch nearly as far as I'd hoped. The Philippines pulled at my heart in a different way. The people seemed incredibly warm. English would make life easier. The beaches were breathtaking, but once again, reality looked different from the travel videos. The areas where I truly felt safe weren't cheap. Unexpected expenses kept appearing. Power costs, medical insurance, transportation. Every new calculation made my stomach sink. One evening, surrounded by pages of notes and retirement budgets, I closed my laptop and whispered to myself, maybe nowhere is meant for people like me. Then, almost by accident, I stumbled across stories of retirees quietly living in Indonesia. Not influencers, not luxury vloggers, just ordinary people living simple lives. Something about those stories felt different, less polished, more honest. Without overthinking it, I booked a flight. Looking back now, that was either the bravest decision I'd ever made or the most foolish. At the time, I honestly wasn't sure which. The first month was harder than I ever expected. I got lost almost every day. I couldn't understand menus. Simple errands took twice as long. Some nights, I questioned everything. I missed familiar food. I missed hearing conversations I could understand. Most of all, I missed feeling like I belonged somewhere. Then one afternoon, while walking back from the local market under the scorching sun, I suddenly felt dizzy. I sat down outside a tiny neighborhood shop, trying to catch my breath. Within moments, an elderly woman who owned the shop walked over. She didn't ask where I was from. She didn't ask why I was there. She simply brought me a chair, a bottle of cold water, and gently placed a small fan beside me. A younger man passing by helped translate. She kept smiling the entire time. Before I left, she pressed a few bananas into my hands. I reached for my wallet. She shook her head. No, The next morning, I walked past her shop again. She smiled as though she'd been expecting me. After that, it became a routine. Some mornings we'd sit together in comfortable silence. Other mornings her grandchildren would practice their English while laughing at my terrible Indonesian pronunciation. Soon the fruit seller recognized me. The woman at the little cafe remembered exactly how I liked my coffee. Neighbors began waving before I even knew their names. Someone always seemed to ask, "Are you okay today?" If they didn't see me for a couple of days, they noticed. Not because I was a foreigner, because I had quietly become part of their neighborhood. That was the moment everything changed. For the first time since losing my husband, I stopped feeling like I was surviving life. I started participating in it again. People still ask if Indonesia is better than Malaysia or the Philippines. I always tell them they're asking the wrong question. This isn't about which country has the better infrastructure, or the faster internet, or even the lower cost of living. Those things matter, but only up to a point. What saved me wasn't cheaper rent. It wasn't affordable food. It wasn't the exchange rate. It was something I never thought I would find again at 68 years old: belonging. Today, my home is much smaller than the one I left behind. I own fewer things. My life is quieter, simpler. Some days, the power goes out. Traffic can still be chaotic. Nothing here is perfect. But every morning, someone greets me by name. Someone asks if I've eaten. Someone notices when I haven't stopped by for coffee. And that simple feeling is worth more than anything my retirement savings could ever buy. I came to Indonesia believing I was searching for a cheaper place to grow old. Instead, I found people who reminded me that growing old doesn't have to mean growing alone. Because I've learned something no retirement guide ever mentions. Home isn't the place where your money lasts the longest. Home is the place where your heart finally stops feeling like a visitor. And somehow, after 68 years of searching, I found that home in Indonesia. Sometimes people ask me if moving to Indonesia was the best decision I ever made. I always smile before answering, because the truth is, I didn't just find a country where my retirement money could go further. I found a place where I stopped feeling alone. And at 68 years old, that turned out to be worth more than anything money could ever buy. If my story meant something to you today, I'd love to hear where you're watching from. And if you enjoy stories about retirement, new beginnings, and finding home in unexpected places, I hope you'll join me again for the next one.